Anastasia, you run Indiegogo's operations in Europe. Basically, Indiegogo, I've been aware for a long time. I first mentioned I heard of it first about a few years ago when I knew a kid who was using it to build a game and he bought a computer through it or crowdfunded his first laptop through it. In terms of the march of Indiegogo into Europe, how is that going to happen? What is it like so far?
Indiegogo has always been global, so from day one we went out there and said that finance is broken, we need to fix it, and we need to fix it everywhere. So from day one, anyone anywhere in the world could fund and get their idea on Indiegogo and raise money. But what we've seen is that all these countries all around the world have started to adopt it a lot more, and the appetite for crowdfunding on both sides has increased. So in Europe, for example, we've just seen this amazing growth in the UK, in Paris, in Berlin, in these burgeoning cities where there's a huge amount of technology, there's a lot of creativity, and there's people wanting to make the world a better place.
And in terms of as you mentioned there, more and more people see it as a more of a legitimate platform for doing things. I find it more and more used by companies to test products and often at the behest of their venture capitalists. And do you see crowdfunding eventually becoming, actually funny enough, I've talked to banks who've actually said they're very interested in crowdfunding. So do you see crowdfunding as becoming more of along the lines of banking as well, where even banks are encouraging or partnering with crowdfunds like Indiegogo?
Absolutely. So the reason that Indiegogo was founded back in 2008 was to try and democratize access to capital. It was banks and investors weren't lending. It was really hard to raise money to get your idea off the ground. And so our founders looked at the model and said, we need to do something about this. We need to make it more democratic and get the power back into the hands of the people. And so what started out in a recession as people being able to raise money for their ideas has evolved, and crowdfunding has really changed in the last 7 years. And what you mentioned about corporates and bigger brands and validation, all of these things are part of what the value of crowdfunding is. So when somebody asks me, why would I crowdfund? Like, what's the value of crowdfunding? My first answer isn't money. It's market validation, it's getting your idea out there and asking a wide group of people what they think about your product or your idea. It's finding and building that community, it's capturing data on your customers, and also it's raising money. So there's a huge amount of value on the marketing side as well as the testing side. So that's why you see brands using Indiegogo for their marketing, to put their idea out there. So we had GE recently put their product out there and they got a huge amount of awareness, but what they were really after was market testing. So they said, okay, we could spend millions and millions of dollars and put this ice cube machine out there, and we don't know if anyone even likes it or wants it to buy it. So they launched their Indiegogo campaign, they raised $3 million plus from people all over the world, and suddenly they had their market validation, but they also had a huge amount of PR and marketing. So I think the future is very much, big brands as well as small startups leveraging Indiegogo, and it's about mitigating risk. It's about lowering risk for everybody, the VCs, the banks, and also the startups.
And in terms of the spreading the message in Europe, I mean, you're leading Europe's charge for Indiegogo. Do you see yourselves putting more infrastructure on the ground, more boots on the ground? Do you see yourselves expanding your physical infrastructure here in Europe?
I think crowdfunding, like any online e-commerce play, relies on people all over the world, but also a centralized kind of unit. So our centralized unit is in San Francisco. All of our operations are there, our marketing team, all of our tech guys that are out there building this amazing new product for people to make it easier for them to raise money. I think it's important to have global local. I think it's important to have people, going out into Paris and speaking to someone in French or being in Germany on the ground. But I think a lot of the things that we can do to help people, we can do from anywhere. I mean, I live in London. I go to like 20 different cities every month, which is crazy. I have a lot of air miles. And I get to meet people all the time, but also a lot of my job is on Skype and FaceTime and WhatsApp and email. And so I think kind of when we look at the modern world, everybody is very fractured. Everybody's all over the place. But with the technology that's offered, you can be all over the world. And crowdfunding is just another piece of that. If you think about somebody that crowdfunds, they could be sat in a tiny city in Ireland, but they're getting funding from all over the world.
And in terms of the technologies that might be added to crowdfunding, I've looked at crowdfunding sites. I see them primarily almost like a publishing vehicle. Like you publish your pictures of your product, you publish your idea, and then people back it. What kind of technologies do you see being added into the mix to make crowdfunding even more tangible than it currently is?
So when we built Indiegogo 7 years ago, we didn't really know how people were going to use the platform. We built this crowdfunding thing, and we were like, okay, people are going to raise money, so we need someone to put a video up, and we're going to create this system called Perks, because back then the equity model didn't work, because the Jobs Act didn't even exist back then, so they created this Perks model. And so they built this product, and then people started using it in a different way. And so now, 7 years later, the product that people actually want and need is quite similar to an e-commerce product. So our team is constantly innovating, building things like pixel tracking. So if you want to do digital ad spend, you can track whether it's converting and you're getting a good ROI on your spend. We're doing things like integrated social. We're doing things like In Demand, which is a new service which enables you to move from your campaign phase into pre-commerce, e-commerce. So you capture the long tail of people that may have seen your product, but they missed out on the campaign phase, and they can still fund you in this kind of pre-order phase. So we're constantly innovating. We honestly ask our customers, the people raising money in our community, what do they want to see? And we're constantly trying to improve the analytics and improve the product so that they get a better product out of it.
Anastasia, thank you very much. That was great.
You're very welcome.
Very good.
Thank
you didn't have to stop once.
I didn't, but I'm not sure what I said.